If you are a believer in realism, Chanakya says, अगर शास्त्र को भूलोगे तो अपनी संस्कृति खोगे. If our civilizational wisdom talked of convergence, and if the global metrics were moving towards convergence and strategic productivity, why should India be trapped in silos? By 2019 to 2023, China leads in 57 out of 65. In China, if you are a civilian startup, say you're doing cameras or some kind of sensors, civil, you will be shocked that the PLA will approach you. In India, the brightest startup will have to battle L1. We don't do it strategically. We do it in a very... Our metrics are accounting L1. Their metrics are strategic.
Hello and welcome to the Statesman Talk. I'm Ananya Dasgupta. On this episode, we are joined by Lt Gen Raj Shukla, member UPSC. He's here with his latest book, Civil-Military Fusion as a Metric of National Power and Comprehensive Security. Thank you very much for joining us on the Statesman Talk, sir.
Thank you, Ananya, for getting me over. Great pleasure.
In simple terms, sir, what does civil-military fusion mean for a country like India?
So, when I was growing up, the state that I come from, UP, and the village that I hailed from, there was a person by the name of Devi Narayan Mishra. He was not formally schooled, but he was he was somebody who was respected because he had a grasp of what we may call civilizational wisdom, Mahabharata, Ramayana. So once he uttered this phrase of Saraswati, Lakshmi or Durga ka Mishran. So when I asked my father what it meant, he explained it to me by saying that the ancient thought in India was about setting up these entities of academic excellence. So say like Nalanda, the Banaras Hindu University, and using these universities to create talent and technology, which would then create Lakshmi. So wealth creation was respected, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and then use some of the Lakshmi to nurse instruments of power, Durga. So not that I'm saying when I was a child, I got the import of it, but it was somewhere at the back of my mind, this concept. And when I joined the government in the army, I found India especially trapped in all kinds of silos. There was the Air Force silo, the Navy silo, the Army silo, private sector government. It was taboo to even interact with somebody from the private sector. Academia was in a world of its own. So there was certainly no Mishran happening. So that, and then as I grew in service, one heard of this term military-civil fusion from China. So Z says, why build walls of granite between cylinders of excellence? Common sense. In India, the whole conversation was about civilian control of the military. Control. Now, at one time, it was perhaps necessary, coup-proofing and all that. But world over, China was one example, Israel was another, America was the third, where the debate started moving towards the civil and the military collaborating towards strategic productivity and outcomes, and certainly not of control. So that was a thought in my head, that if our civilizational wisdom talked of convergence, and if the global metrics were moving towards convergence and strategic productivity, why should India be trapped in silos, unproductive silos? So that was a thought in my head. And some of it has changed. In 2014, when the government announced the CDS is in fact the Sutradhar of civil military fusion. His job is to take military capacities and synergize them with the civilian capacity. Now in thought that is changing. So now today you have Atmanirbharta and defense, which is all about the private sector and startups. So we are gradually moving from these silos to our civilizational wisdom.
But how challenging is it in the Indian context to move from these silos and come together for a fused enterprise?
So it is very challenging because you have to first collapse those silos. And you have created these silos with such diligence over the years. For example, the PSUs, the defense PSUs. They are extremely reluctant to get private sector in, to get startups in. That is one challenge. Look at the whole challenge with theatre commands. We have not been able to set up theatre commands, which is actually synergizing the three services. So there are challenges, but they say, what is that? You can't stop an idea whose moment has come. So the moment has come. We just have to do it. Either we do it with grace, or we will do it through, what shall I say, bitter lessons. So it just has to be done. And I'll give you examples of how people are perfecting the civil military fusion. China is a good example.
Yes.
Ukraine, in fact, everybody is doing it.
And how has this fusion helped China? How has it given them an edge?
So before that, I may just say this now. Though the book is titled Civil Military Fusion, the import of this term has expanded greatly. Now it is just not civil military. It is every metric in your strategic toolkit. So it is talent from anywhere, attributes of any kind. So private sector, startups, diplomacy, the civil service, military, everybody coming together in a fused enterprise for three things: economic productivity, technological prowess, and strategic military heft. So it has become the secret sauce to fuel the rise of nations. It has become a secret sauce to strengthen the power metric. So now the term is far beyond civil military. So the coinage was that. China, they call it military civil fusion because the Chinese are in the lead. Now, so examples. So I told you what Z said, that aphorism. But beyond the aphorism, Z personally heads the military civil fusion commission in China.
I see.
Z personally. On a day-to-day basis, military civil fusion initiatives are driven by the PLA. So see what they have done. I'll give you 2 to 3 examples. The poster child of military civil fusion is the Chinese State Shipbuilding Corporation, CSSC. It has got 4 tiers, ostensibly to the external world, as the Chinese do, deception. Tiers 1 and 2 are for the PLA, tiers 3 and 4 are for commerce. But by clever design architecture, all the technology and capital coming to 3 and 4 is smartly passed on to the tiers 1 and 2. So the technology and capital coming from the world of commerce is fueling the PLA's rise. So a good example, the CSSC is powering both global commerce, Chinese global commerce, and the world's most powerful navy. So look at this. Last year, in 2024, the CSSC produced more commercial shipping tonnage than the Americans have produced since World War II. Look at the mind-boggling figures. They are also, the CSSC is building a 500 ship navy, bigger than the USA. It is so, their shipbuilding capacities are 200 times that of USA. Warship production 4 to 5 times. Trump is so worried that he's got shipbuilding under the White House. And now he's reaching out to the South Koreans to partner so as to beat the Chinese. This is civil military fusion. In our case, we still have naval shipyards and civil shipyards in 2 worlds of their own. Let me give you one more example. The West was obsessed with dual-use technologies. Military technologies were evil. So Silicon Valley 10 years back distanced itself from military technology and said, no, we have nothing to do with the Pentagon. But what did they do? Knowingly or unwittingly, they gave those same technologies to Chinese commercial companies, civil commerce to civil commerce. And what were the Chinese commercial companies forced to do? By law, in China, they were forced to share commercial technologies with the PLA. So Silicon Valley was denying technology to its own military, but through commercial channels,
passing it on to China.
So this is what the Chinese have done. We are talking so much about startups in India. We have startups in defense, you would have heard these terms, and startups elsewhere. In China, if you are a civilian startup, say you're doing cameras or some kind of sensors, civil, you will be shocked that the PLA will approach you one day and say, here is your order. You wonder why is the PLA interested in me? No, take the order. Now, if you're particularly bright, they will hold your hand till commercial viability. They will hold your hand till you play the market or till you sustain yourself to play the market. And if you're brilliant, they will say, "Sab kuch chhod do, mere saath aao. I will take care of all your finances." Why? We have to beat the American startup which is looming in the horizon. It is strategic to beat international competition. In India, the brightest startup will have to battle L1. We don't do it strategically. We do it in a very... Our metrics are accounting, L1. Their metrics are strategic. Now, does it surprise you that 2003 to 2007, if you take all the emerging critical technologies, there are 65 of them, I'm told, technologies and subsets, America, the sole superpower, led in 60 out of 65. Then through initiatives like this, military-civil fusion, diaspora strategy, 1,000 talents plan, by 2019 to 2023, China leads in 57 out of 65. Look at the dramatic inversion of technology. So my deduction in the book that if there is one reason or one major reason why China is beating most democracies, it is because of military-civil fusion.
And any other country which is also working on the same model?
No, they are, but they are all reacting. So I'll give you examples of what Israel is doing, USA is doing. But what should bother us is that a supposed autocracy thought of all these clever ways to beat the West. You look at it, the first three industrial revolutions were led by UK and the West. So they ruled the world. In the fourth industrial revolution, I think 3 weeks back, Rush Doshi, an Indian-American observer of Chinese, the Sino-American competition, gives you dazzling figures. In the fourth industrial revolution, every metric China is leading. So what is it? Manufacturing capacities twice, car production 3 times, steel 20 times, cement 11 times, EVs 97% of the market, batteries. You know, I was in, a month back, I was in Singapore for the Morgan Stanley Summit. And before me, the chairman BYD was speaking.
Okay.
Amazing. He says that I was told by the Politburo that you have to beat Tesla. Diktat. So I went back to them and said, Tesla spends $5 billion on R&D. They said, take 15. Look at it, $15 billion. And now look at these figures. You know, when he said this, he said, we have got 120,000 engineers working on R&D. No commerce, just R&D. So when he stepped off the stage, I went to him and I rechecked the figures. He wrote it in pen, said 120,000, mind-boggling. They have gone 11 research institutes. And out of this 120,000, 30, 40,000 are from the PLA, civil military. In our case, it will never be. हम बोलेंगे पहले civil अलग, military अलग. And look at that. Look at the way they do it. It is absolutely stunning. So they see what Tesla is doing. They say Tesla is focusing on 3 domains. Energy, AI, what these guys call intelligentization, I don't know for what reason, the Chinese, and next generation robotics. And he says that in energy, we are already ahead of them. So BYD has pushed out Volkswagen from the German car market on the strength of energy's batteries. He says AI, we are behind, he acknowledges, but we are getting close. Next generation robotics, we are ahead of them. So this is now the BYD carriers, you know, the car carriers which are used to carry cars, they are modified. They are being used for exercises in Taiwan. Civil military, unki soch hi aise. If you are from a shipping corporation in China, a private shipping corporation, you will be told कि ये आपकी शिप है ना, इसमें ये थोड़ी जगह छोड़ दीजिए मिसाइल्स के लिए, ये जगह छोड़ दीजिए थोड़े for some radars and all that. उसकी जो costs हैं, cost delta, PLA will bear it. What do you have to lose? Their whole outlook is like that. And let me give you one more example. See, batteries. I believe every year, every 10 years, the Politburo picks on one technology. So 10 years back, they picked on batteries. Agar India mein the Prime Minister says batteries, I mean, people will say, make memes out of him on that subject. Look at it. So they have designed 450 courses in their university system on batteries. You have to go through that list I didn't even know that there could be 450 domains in batteries.
Yes.
And not batteries, it's the whole energy game.
Hmm.
They set up a university in central China on batteries.
I see.
They link it to the PLA Academy of Military Sciences, Civil Military Fusion. And they produced a whole generation of graduates, postgraduates, doctorates in energy batteries. Now, does it surprise you, as I said, that BYD has pushed out Volkswagen from the German car market? Last quarter, its quarterly, its profits were higher than Tesla. They're challenging Tesla. And those same batteries go into your AD systems, they go into your submarines, they go into your fighter aircraft. Now, it is common sense of a very wise kind. Now, this is civil military fusion. How do these ideas come to them and why they don't come to us is.
The only thing that occurs to me while you say this, how does India adapt this? How does India take this up?
So I pose two rhetorical questions. Why did we abandon our wisdom in the first place when I said Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga Commission? Wasn't it brilliant? What do the Americans do? They take talent from all over the world. Satya Nadella and all those guys, they are there. Their university system uses that talent to produce technologies, and those technologies fund 800 military bases around the world. What underwrites the dollar are those bases. Sorry. People don't understand this. The dollar is the reserve currency because of military power. Now, what is it? Is it not Saraswati Lakshmi Durga Commission? Whom did I hear it from? Devi Narayan Mishra. Now, where does he source it from? God knows. And this was not somebody schooled in Harvard, but he said this, in our small villages, शाम को बैठ के गोष्ठी करते हैं, तर्क वितर्क. This is where I first heard it. It was just in the back of my mind. And I remember asking this of my father, and that was the explanation he gave me. And when I was writing the book, I tried to source it. I couldn't source it to any authentic source. But there is something. It is there. It's definitely in village conversations. So why did we abandon the wisdom in the first place? Look at the Chinese. They adapted every modern military practice. And therefore their economic zoom and military gallop, but never forgot the wisdom of Sun Tzu and Confucius. We adapted Western practices and substituted Chanakya with Clausewitz. That was our error. I mean, look at Chanakya. If you are a believer in realism, Chanakya says, अगर शास्त्र को भूलोगे तो अपनी संस्कृति खो दोगे. If you forget your civilizational wisdom, you will lose your culture. और अगर शस्त्र का त्याग करोगे तो राष्ट्र ही खो दोगे. He is saying, position your instrument of force sensibly in your strategic calculus. Wisdom beyond measure. And we have been rather ambiguous with regard to placing the instrument of force in our strategic calculus on the mistaken belief that modern civilizations don't do it. It is utter nonsense. While we speak of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is very wise, we must never forget the wisdom of Vivekananda, who constantly reminded us that the world is a gymnasium where nations come to make themselves strong. So while I am all for the former, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it should not come at the cost of the latter. Power matters. And power is a product of civil military fusion. So that is the larger argument. It was always in my head, but it came out in this form of this book when I got time to write it in retirement. But so I've told you how it was in my head, how I saw this happening. I have recounted this in the book, and see, I'm not saying this with any political, but it is a fact. Fareed Zakaria in the postmodern world records, post-American world, that Prime Minister Nehru in the 1950s, when he walks into MOD, sees some officers in uniform and flies into a rage. Now, Fareed is saying that if military officers, he's brought up in the American system, if they're not seen in the MOD, where will they be seen? But that was the spirit of those times. There's coups happening all over, so coup-proofing. So perhaps, as I argue, for a while it made sense. But there came a time when the civil-military equation graduated towards strategic productivity, outcomes, and we were still stuck in that business of control. And see this larger thing about control, regulation. Now, civil-military fusion, I argue later, is a winning strategy. It is prioritizing outcomes over processes. When I was growing up in the military, I was told outcome chhod do, process bada important. Process must always. It says other way around. It prioritizes innovation over regulation. These are the modern metrics. The European Union, because it mastered the regulatory framework in such unwise ways, has destroyed itself. In 10 years, its global share of the GDP has shrunk from 24 to 14% because of excess regulation. So now CMF goes beyond that. It is a winning strategy. As I said, outcomes over processes, innovation over regulation. It is so difficult in India for startups now to break through this whole regulation regime. So it's a far wider argument. It is just not military, civil, it is a winning strategy. And therefore, I also say that in our competition with China, it could be the secret sauce to draw level, or at least to reduce the lag. Why? Because 65 to 70% of civil military CMF initiatives are budget agnostic. They are structural, they are cultural. So this idea has to sink into us. And if this idea is embraced, it is going to be a huge challenge. We could do far better than what
And you've
we're
also
doing.
cited the example of Ukraine. I mean, not just China or Israel or the US, where you say Ukraine's in-house civilian IT talent, along with Western big tech, have helped the Ukrainian military keep a military superpower like Russia at bay for over 3 years. Something that maybe we hadn't, thought
So
of.
this is a
But
very good example. You look at how our security architectures have evolved in recent times. One model is Israel, where you have piloted air power, F-35, stealth, and of course all the wraparound technologies which only the Americans have. Nobody else has them. When they come together, you have air dominance in Rising Lion in 3.5 days. 3.5 days. Move to Ukraine now. One of the world's most formidable militaries, Russia, a powerful but siloed military, they were working in silos, has not been able to achieve air superiority in 4 years. 3.5 days, 4 years. And Ukraine, now this is sometimes doesn't sink in. It is a country without an air force or a navy. Imagine that. And you are up against the most formidable power in the world, military power.
actually,
Russia.
I noted that only when I read this portion of the
Yes,
book.
yes.
It didn't register.
No air force or navy, on the back of technological innovation and civil military fusion, has kept it at bay for 3.5, 4 years. So that is the power of CM. Now I'll give you the example. How does it happen? So when Putin invades them, at that time, drones are flown only in weddings. But they were rich in IT. So some of these guys say, if they can fly in weddings, how can we use them in theaters? And they were desperate. They didn't have anything. So what do? And they found that if you put a camera on this drone, it travels 3 kilometers, gets some information, and it comes back to you. And they build on that. They take the drone, because they have no ships, they have no aircraft. They take those drones and gradually they put AI cameras. They put cameras and AI chip and all that. They start doing that. And then the Russians, they cut off their internet. You know, that famous, they jam that American company. There's no net. Who comes to the rescue? Starlinks. But still, when the GPS signals are jammed, they don't know how to send the drone to the target. So now they make the chips more sophisticated. What I'm saying is, by trial and error, they discover how the drone can not only auto-navigate to the target, it can also auto-select targets. So dronery has been discovered on the go by these people. And today they have taken it to such a high level that with these Chinese batteries, they have created an aerial flank of air power. You can engage targets at 25 kilometers and 3,000 kilometers. If you see Operation Spider Web, where they went and hit the Russian nuclear,
Yes,
it was 3,000 kilometers. Dronery has been discovered as an art and science. And how did it do this along the way? In infantry battalions, they put 2 AI engineers, 2 data engineers, civil military fusion, just not the soldiers. And today they are firing 8 million drones in a year, more than the artillery they fired last year. So dronery is challenging artillery. Tanks don't move. It has become a tool of strategic air power. the formidable Black Sea fleet of the Russians has been confined to um, their ports. Look at this. So they have, without a navy, they hit a Russian submarine 2 weeks back. Imagine with drones which were used just in weddings through AI enablement and all this kind of stuff. But what kind of, they've got big tech talent, people of the caliber of Alex Karp, Elon Musk. You know, World War II, you would have heard of Montgomery, you would have heard of Patton. 71, you would have heard of Manekshaw. Name one general in Ukraine. Because the generals in Ukraine are Elon Musk, Alex Karp, technology, startups, brilliance.
Yeah.
This is how the world has changed. So I conclude by saying that Ukraine, you have the war fighter, the innovationist, say Palmer Luckey, the technologist, Alex Karp, the entrepreneur, Elon Musk. This is the new team which has brought the theater of war and the marketplace together. They have a drone regiment called Nemesis. If you are in the Nemesis regiment, you want a camera or a sensor, you can buy it off their military marketplace like you buy an Amazon product. So all this bureaucracy of moving a file here and all gone. GSQR and all that, all gone. If I take out 2 tanks and I take out, say, 6 artillery pieces, I can redeem points like you do on this marketplace. This was unheard of in military circles. So this innovation, technological innovation, civil military fusion, getting Elon Musk in, getting people of the caliber of Alex Karp, that has given them strategic military heft. They have been able to take care of, in consequence now, the Americans didn't do it on their own. In consequence, the Americans started a scheme called Det 201, where they have bought CTOs of the most powerful American startups like Shyam Shankar, Kevin Well, Andrew Boswell. They have inducted them as lieutenant colonels,
I see.
into the military. Technical, it is the sharpest technical minds. It's like getting Satya Nadella into the Indian Army and saying, you know the technology, now you drive the technology, and not the other way around. So this is the way things are moving. And this Det 201 is doing wonderful work there, civil military fusion. Look at the Israelis. They, of course, have a very good air force, piloted air power. But none of those strikes could have happened without capacities in space, electronic warfare, and cyber. And who's fueling those capacities? They have units called 8200, 9300, which are young technology geeks, not a single service officer. You know, people in sneakers who understand space, EW, cyber. They have given the Israeli Air Force what is called offensive ISR. So what is it? Since 2006, the Israelis knew virtually every night where Nasrullah was sleeping. They only took him out in 2024 when the political directions came. So it gives you this kind of prowess in space, EW, cyber, which, you know, collaborates with the air power to be able to deliver. Unless we make this huge swivel, we will have capacities, but they will never be those cutting edge capacities to deliver on these kind of objectives. Now, that is the world, the way the military world is moving. You take most of these technologies, they lie at the cusp of civil military fusion. For example, AI can be used for economic productivity. AI is being used in combat. So increasingly, it would seem to me that we must focus on civil military capacities together. We are still making a mistake. Look at our technology missions. They are all civil-led. The military is absent. The Anusandhan Fund, which has been created for private sector research, the military doesn't have a stake. Because by mindset, we say civil alag, military alag. So this phrase in India, civil club, military club, civil, you know, we're growing up in 2 different words. This has to collapse.
But is anything changing in the way we are thinking, especially with institutions like the Chief of Defense Staff, where is it playing a role in pushing fusion forward?
So see, that is a very good initiative. Now beyond that, we are getting some civil faculty in our institutions. Much of the, I think last month, the Army has taken out a new scheme where EW, cyber, this kind of talent can be inducted directly into the Army. So some of these steps are being taken. I told you civil faculty in our teaching institutions. This whole drone drive of the Army is driven by startups. The Army has given great orders to some startups. Some of those startups who have got orders from us have also got orders from US Space Corps. So it has taken off in a big way. Civil military fusion, at least as a concept, is understood. It is being embraced. Nobody is saying why no civil military fusion. But it now needs to be energized in scale and cost. Our problem is China. See, if China were tucked away somewhere in Latin America, we would have no problem. But China is right next door and it does things with the figures that I give you, the Americans are mind boggling. So, what we have to do now is to step up in speed and scale. Speed and scale. That bit has to happen. And for that, our regulatory enterprise has to crumble and the innovation ecosystem has to go. We still have, see, how are our civil services designed? By nature, the civil servant minimizes risk. I'll perfect the process so that there is no corruption, nobody suffers. He has to be rewarded for risk, not minimizing risk, but risk taking. Now, that will need a big, even in the West, it's just happening. For example, the British have just completed a strategic defense review in which the annual confidential reports of civil servants are being changed. It is no longer for savings that you effect, financial prudence, one of the factors. The decisive factors there are outcomes, lethalities, time frames. So you should be able to push a big system, say an aircraft or a ship, in 4 years and not these 15-year time frames that we have in India. Then it specifies modular platforms 1 year and things like AI and all 3 months. Technology is moving so fast, you can't have an AI project over 2 years. So you get these mindset changes. So I'm saying, let me put it this way. Look at our civilizational wisdom. For some silly reason, we abandoned it. And what the Chinese are doing, Americans, Israelis are reacting. We have begun to take those actions, but we must step up speed and scale. And for the future, when will that time come when India stops reacting and India starts setting the pace? We must now, in the technology of the future, say quantum, there should be such fused enterprises that we set the space. Let some podcast in London be saying, oh, what good stuff the Indians have done, instead of we constantly saying. So I'm saying that a lot of great stuff has started. It needs to step up in speed and scale. Because see, the startup world also is very competitive. Our startups need orders. Unless they get orders, how will they put it into the next generation R&D? Look at one figure, which should tell you how far behind we are. We need to wake up. The Americans spend $975 billion on R&D every year. Science R&D. $700 billion comes from the private sector. I told you BYD, 11 research institutes. The Chinese spend $545 billion. Now, in the Chinese case, you can't say whether it's government or India, the figure is less than $40 billion. Look at where the private sector is. Now, my question to the private sector is not why don't you spend? Why don't you see obvious value in R&D? If you are not spending in R&D, does it not tell you where you will be 10 years later? So in some ways, the game has picked up. But R&D is a great indicator. If the American private sector spends $700 billion, our private sector should spend far more. This obsession with quarterly profits has to go. You have to play the long game. CMF is a tool for the long game. You have to play the long game. Look at things in strategic military terms to win the competition, to beat the Chinese and not react to the Chinese.
So if I were to ask you, what's the one big takeaway from your book for India's leaders, not just in a sector, in any sector, for India's leaders, what would be that takeaway?
So who am I to suggest to our leaders? But let me just say this, that India today has got great weight and influence in the international system. After all, we have a great market. We also have talent. Our talenting is fueling the American economy. We have political stability. But this weight and influence has yet to be converted into power. And CMF will be the tool to convert this weight and influence into power. Let's not dissipate them in civil and military capacities, but fuse this weight and influence in a civil military frame so that we become powerful. So I think that would be one big piece of advice. Anything we do in the future, our technology missions, anything that we do, they should be fused enterprises. We should stop having, in fact, in ways we have regressed. There was a time when the HAL chairman used to be people from the Air Force and that kind. So you were chairman HAL and you went and became chief of the Air Staff. There was fusion. See, today what's happening? The chairman HAL is appointed at 58 and he retires at 60. In any aviation enterprise, you need a time horizon of 10 to 15 years. वो 2 साल में क्या करेगा? So that is a bureaucratic, regulatory way of doing things. Aviation has to be a long-term investment. So it has to be get somebody at the age of 40. So, civil-military fusion talks of all these issues, common sense, winning strategy. In that sense, we have to deregulate, we have to innovate, we have to prioritize innovation over regulation. Now, in day-to-day business, it is a big challenge because each time on that file, you have to prioritize innovation. It takes guts.
Yes.
It takes those kind of, it needs a cultural change. It needs a structural change. Now, how we do it, it will need leadership, it will need understanding. So this book is a humble contribution in that sense. Hopefully some people will read it, some of them will implement it, but since the idea was in my head, I just thought I'll put it in.
One last question. That you're now a UPSC member. How has your military background influenced the way you now evaluate candidates who can be future civil servants?
So see, while the military is a different ecosystem, there are many commonalities between military and civil. For example, the basic attributes of hard work, clarity, intelligence, diligence, they are common to both domains. So evaluation in that sense is common. What do you look in a candidate? You look in a candidate, he should be genuine, he should be well informed, he should be intelligent, he should be diligent, and those qualities remain the same. So I would say anybody, my experience just tells me this. While there are many challenges and I'm not being idealistic, but there is a couplet which says कि खामोशी से बनाते रहो पहचान अपनी, ये हवाएं खुद तुम्हारा तराना गुनगुनाएंगी. And when I look back, that is it. If you are generally diligent, hardworking, of course intelligent, and do your stuff, whether in the civil or military domains, you will get respect. So I think that is one piece of advice if people are willing to listen.
Yes, young folks especially. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the Statesman Talk.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank
Lovely
you for getting
talking
me
to
over.
you.
Lovely. Thank you.
That's it then on this episode of the Statesman Talk. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and post your comments on what you thought of this episode. We come to you from the Statesman, which is one of India's oldest English newspapers.